You're among the darkest chosen ones if you have these 5 duality powers. You were never meant to fit in. That unease you've carried since childhood, that sense that something about you is different not just emotionally, but spiritually, isn't a flaw. It's a signature. A cosmic fingerprint. Something ancient encoded into your soul long before this life began. And now, in this moment, as the world spirals into noise and distraction, the hidden ones are being called to remember who they truly are. If you're watching this, if these words strike something deep inside you, something almost painful, you may already know. You're not here to escape the darkness. You're here to master it. Because only those who have walked with shadows can carry the light that transforms worlds. The darkest chosen ones are not evil. They are not villains. They are not the stereotypical dark side characters you've been taught to fear. Instead, they're the ones who were built to hold the paradox of duality within themselves without being torn apart. They are the ones who can walk into the underworld and not lose themselves. The ones who can see darkness in others and still not judge. The ones who can be surrounded by chaos and still find the still point inside. They don't deny pain, they alchemize it. They don't ignore fear, they walk through it. And they don't pretend to be perfect, they know that their imperfections are sacred tools of awakening.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first of the 5 duality powers is the ability to hold both rage and compassion in the same breath. Most people think these energies are opposites. That to be spiritual, you must be peaceful, calm, endlessly forgiving. But true spiritual power is not found in suppression. It is found in integration. Dark chosen ones can feel the full force of righteous anger at injustice, at lies, at the exploitation of the innocent, and still not be consumed by it. They can channel that fire into protection, into truth-telling, into transformation. And at the exact same time, they can look into the eyes of their enemies and feel compassion. Not because they excuse the harm, but because they see the wound behind it. Rage without compassion becomes destruction. Compassion without rage becomes passivity. The dark ones hold both like a sword in one hand and a rose in the other. The second power is the ability to disappear in plain sight. This is not metaphorical. You've likely already experienced it. Moments where people don't notice you, even when you're right in front of them. Where your presence becomes like smoke, untouchable, ungraspable, untraceable. This is not social awkwardness. This is cloaking. A spiritual camouflage encoded into your aura. Because the dark chosen ones are not always meant to be seen. They are often watchers, observers, guardians of hidden truths. And when the time is right, they emerge not with noise or spectacle, but with a quiet force that shifts the atmosphere. If you felt invisible most of your life, it's not because you're insignificant. It's because you were being protected until the world was ready. The third duality power is the gift of emotional shapeshifting. You can walk into a room and instantly sense the mood, the hidden dynamics, the unsaid tensions. And without even trying, you begin to shift, mirroring, adjusting, becoming what the space needs. To the unaware, this feels like losing yourself, like you have no fixed identity. But what's really happening is something far more advanced. You're tuning. You're adapting your frequency to stabilize the collective field. This is why people often project onto you. Some will see you as a healer, others as a threat. Some will fall in love with you without knowing why. Others will hate you for reasons they can't explain. It's not personal. It's energetic. You are a mirror. And mirrors make people uncomfortable, especially when they've spent their lives avoiding their own reflection. But here's where it gets deeper. The fourth power is the capacity to destroy your own life to be reborn. Most people try to preserve their ego structures, They build identities and cling to them like lifeboats. But you've burned down your own life more than once, walked away from relationships, careers, belief systems, sometimes with no backup plan. And it wasn't always pretty. People may have called you unstable, impulsive, self-destructive. But deep down you knew something had to die for the truth to live. This is the Phoenix path, the sacred ability to let go of false versions of yourself, even when it breaks your heart. You're not addicted to chaos, you're addicted to truth. And truth requires death, again and again. If you've ever looked around at a life you built and said, "This isn't me anymore," and walked away from it, all you are one of us. And finally, the fifth duality power is the ability to see beauty inside the broken. Where others see ruin, you see resurrection. Where others see pain, you see potential. You don't flinch at trauma. You don't run from wounds. In fact, you're drawn to them not out of saviorism, but because you know that the seed of light is always buried in the soil of the dark. This is why people open up to you without knowing why strangers confess their secrets, why people come to you in their darkest moments. Because your energy doesn't judge, it remembers. And in your remembering, they begin to remember who they really are too. So now I ask you a question, one that only the darkest chosen ones can truly answer. Are you willing to walk alone, misunderstood and unseen, if it means carrying the key that unlocks others from their prisons? Because that's the path. It's not glamorous. It's not always light-filled, but it is real, and it is needed. You don't need to become more spiritual. You need to become more you, all of you. The fire, the shadow, the silence, the storm. Because when you stop trying to choose between light and dark, and instead embody both, you become something the world has never seen before. And now we go deeper. The black sun within, why light alone cannot save you. There comes a moment on the path where you realize the light you were chasing was never the whole truth. It was a doorway, yes, a necessary one. But beyond that light, past the golden glow of affirmation and awakening, there is something else. Something older, something deeper, something more powerful. It is the black sun. The inner radiance that doesn't shine to be seen, it burns in secret, feeding only those who dare to sit in the dark long enough to feel it. This is the truth most spiritual systems won't tell you. Light by itself is not enough. In fact, without shadow, light becomes toxic. It blinds, it inflates, it disconnects. And that's why you, the darkest chosen ones, are being called to balance it from within. We were taught that light is good and dark is evil. That to ascend, we must shed our pain, quiet our anger, release our fear. And yes, healing matters. But what if I told you that healing isn't about erasing your shadow, it's about honoring it? You are not broken because you carry darkness. You are whole because of it. You didn't come here to reject the world. You came to absorb it, alchemize it, and return it in a new form. This is why the black sun within you is so dangerous to those who are asleep. Because it doesn't offer comfort, it doesn't offer validation, it offers clarity. And clarity destroys illusions. I think about it. How many times have you walked into a space and felt everything? The tension no one would speak of, the secrets behind the smiles, the grief hiding under laughter. That wasn't sensitivity. That was your black sun activating, burning through the surface, revealing what others are too afraid to face. And for that you were called too intense, too much, too dark. So you dimmed your flames, didn't you? You tried to be softer, lighter, more digestible. But it never felt right. Because deep down you knew you weren't sent here to be palatable. You were sent here to be powerful. And power doesn't always look like light. Sometimes it looks like silence, like walking away, like saying no, like refusing to participate in systems that reward conformity over truth. Your black sun is the source of that power. It's the part of you that doesn't need external validation because it's rooted in something eternal. It's the part of you that can sit in pain without needing to escape it. It's the part of you that can love someone's demons without trying to fix them. That's the kind of light the world needs now, not the performative kind, but the transformative kind. And that only comes from duality mastery. The black sun teaches you to see through everything, not with judgment, but with precision. You begin to notice how much of the light in this world is really ego in disguise. People performing goodness. People preaching love but avoiding their own wounds. People selling enlightenment like a brand. And you begin to feel the difference between what is real and what is performance. That discernment? That's the black sun in action. It doesn't just illuminate, it burns away everything false. And when that power rises in you, you must be prepared. Because it will cost you. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you belonging. It will cost you the illusion that you can be fully seen in a world that fears the truth. But what you gain is priceless. You gain sovereignty. You gain alignment. You gain access to a current of energy that doesn't flow through the surface, it flows through the core of existence. That's why the darkest chosen ones often walk alone, not because they're unloved, but because what they carry is too heavy for the unprepared. You're not here to be understood. You're here to remind the world of what it forgot. And that remembrance begins inside. You must learn to sit with your own rage, your own grief, your own shame, not to fix them, not to transcend them, but to meet them, to ask them what they came to teach you. Because every shadow emotion is a gate, and if you walk through it fully, without resistance, you find a piece of your power on the other side. That's the black sun's magic. It doesn't bypass, it doesn't hide, it integrates. It eats the poison and turns it into medicine. So I ask you now, what part of yourself have you been rejecting in the name of being good? What darkness within you is actually sacred intelligence waiting to be unlocked? You don't need to be afraid of the dark anymore. You are the dark, but not the unconscious kind. The conscious kind. The kind that sees through illusion and calls it by name. The kind that walks through a room and clears the air without saying a word. The kind that knows love without needing it to feel soft. You are the black sun. You burn from within. You do not need to be seen to be real. You do not need to be loud to be powerful. And you do not need to be light to be divine. The mirror and the mask, how the darkest ones reflect and reshape reality. There is a reason you've always felt like a stranger in your own life. Like you were watching the world, not fully in it, not fully out of it. Like you could see behind the curtain, even when no one else seemed to notice it was there. That's not a coincidence. It's a function of your design. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to reflect. You are the mirror that life holds up to itself, often without asking. And not everyone welcomes the mirror. In fact, most people run from it. Because to look into you, truly look, is to see what they've avoided their entire lives. Darkest chosen ones don't just live in the world. We bend it. We don't do this through force, but through frequency. Our presence alone disrupts illusions, challenges masks, and stirs the hidden layers of reality to the surface. Have you ever noticed how people become uncomfortable around you for no apparent reason? How they begin to confess things they didn't intend to say? How they project their fears onto you, as if you're carrying something they can't name? That's because, energetically, you are. You're holding a mirror that doesn't reflect how they appear, it reflects who they are. And that's terrifying for someone who's built their life avoiding themselves. But here's the deeper truth: you're not just the mirror, you're also the mask. You've worn it. You've played roles. You've hidden in plain sight, not because you're deceptive, but because you've had to protect your essence. You learned early on that not everyone can handle the truth you carry. So you shaped yourself to survive. You mirrored others to make them feel safe. You dimmed your perception so you wouldn't be feared. And over time, the mask became heavy. It began to suffocate your soul. That's why you're here now, because the mask is cracking and the real you is rising from underneath it. But with that rise comes responsibility. When you begin to live as both mirror and mask, fully conscious of both, you step into a rare kind of spiritual authority. You become the one who sees and chooses. You see the games, the projections, the ego illusions, and you choose whether to reflect them, reveal them, or transmute them. You no longer react. You respond. You no longer absorb. You alchemize. Your life becomes a tuning fork for truth, and everyone who crosses your path is either elevated or exposed by your frequency. Not because you push anything, but because you are the shift. This is why your relationships have always been intense, why people either become obsessed with you or try to erase you. You're not neutral. You're catalytic. You accelerate evolution just by being present. And that's not an easy path to walk. It means you will often be alone, not because you're unworthy of love, but because your presence demands real love, unfiltered, unmasked, raw. And many people are not ready for that. They want the fantasy. They want the version of themselves they've curated. But you see underneath it. You see the cracks, the wounds, the suppressed brilliance. And when they feel seen by you, they either awaken or run. So what do you do with this power? How do you carry the weight of being both the revealer and the revealed? You begin with yourself. You drop your own mask first. You look into your own mirror with ruthless compassion. You face your own projections, your own shadows, your own unintegrated desires, not to fix them, but to own them. Because only when you've turned that mirror inward can you wield it outward with clarity and grace. Otherwise, you're just reflecting distortion. And here's the paradox: the more you own your own darkness, the less threatening you become. Not because you lose power, but because your presence becomes clean. People can still feel the intensity, but they also feel the safety within it. They sense that you're not here to judge or destroy. You're here to liberate. And liberation always begins with truth, even when it hurts. So let me ask you, what would happen if you stopped hiding the parts of you that make others uncomfortable? What if your very discomfort was the key to their awakening? You didn't come here to be liked. You came here to shift the axis of reality. And you do that every time you choose to be fully, unapologetically yourself. Walking between worlds, the final power of the darkest chosen ones. There is a moment quiet, unannounced, when you stop trying to return to the world you once knew. When the ache for normalcy fades and you finally understand you were never meant to live in just one reality. You were built to walk between worlds. This is the final power of the darkest chosen ones, not the ability to escape into the light or descend into shadow, but the sacred art of moving between both with full awareness. You become a bridge, a translator, a living paradox. Not because you chose it, but because existence chose you. We've been trained to believe that awakening is a destination. That once you reach a certain level of enlightenment, peace, or ascension, you stay there untouched by the world. But that's not your path. Yours is a spiral. An ongoing descent and return. You dive into the collective pain, feel it in your bones, and then rise again, wiser, heavier, more real. You carry the textures of both heaven and earth in your aura, and that weight makes you magnetic. People don't know why they're drawn to you. They just are, because you carry the codes of both suffering and salvation, and something in them remembers. But this in-between space is not easy to live in. It means you're always slightly out of sync with the timelines around you. You feel the future before it arrives. You grieve things before they end. You celebrate truths others haven't yet discovered. And that dissonance can drive you mad if you don't learn how to hold it. That's why many dark chosen ones go through long periods of isolation, not because they're antisocial, but because they're recalibrating. You're tuning yourself to a frequency that doesn't yet exist in the mainstream. You're learning how to exist in multiple dimensions at once. And here's the key: walking between worlds means mastering energy, not just emotion. You begin to realize that what you say is far less important than what you carry. Your field speaks louder than your words. Your silence becomes a sermon. Your gaze becomes a transmission. You stop trying to convince anyone of anything, because the ones who are ready will feel you long before they understand you. And the ones who aren't ready, you bless them and move on. You waste no energy forcing light into closed doors. This is where you begin to fully accept your role as a threshold guardian. You are stationed at the edge, not because you're lost, but because that's where the transformation happens. People come to you at the brink, at the collapse, at the turning point, and your job is not to save them. Your job is to mirror them back to themselves so clearly that they either rise or retreat. That's it. No attachment, no ego, just truth. But you must also remember this: walking between worlds means you must take care of both your human and your cosmic self. You must sleep, eat, laugh, cry. You must ground your power or it will destroy you. You must create rituals that anchor you to this earth, even as your spirit touches the infinite. You are not here to float, you are here to embody. And embodiment is the most advanced spiritual practice of all. This is the final test. Can you stay open even when no one sees you? Can you keep walking even when the path disappears beneath your feet? Can you carry the unbearable beauty and unbearable sorrow of this world without trying to escape either? If you can, then you are truly one of the darkest chosen ones, not because of what you've learned, but because of what you've become. You are not just surviving the threshold, you are the threshold. You are not just visiting the underworld, you are the underworld. And you are not just bringing light to the world. You are the convergence of all things dark and divine, broken and holy, human and infinite. So walk now not with fear, but with reverence. The world may not understand you, but the world has never needed you more. You've returned to your place, not above, not below, but between, exactly where the magic happens.